The Majestic lion, that's a unique name and a unique deer. Where did all that stem from?
Yeah, Majestic lion is definitely a unique name. And it's because he is majestic and he is huge. And that's pretty much where the name comes from. It's not really all that creative, it's just he is unreal.
What was the story leading up to it?
So we're gearing up to head north to Alberta and we're getting excited for the hunt. It's a couple weeks before the hunt and I get a random text that comes through on my phone with a picture of a deer that looks like an absolute mammoth. I mean, this deer just looks huge. He's in velvet and the gist of the text message was this deer. From that point forward, you know, Lee, the outfitter, was hell-bent on tracking down the Majestic lion and seeing if we could get an arrow in him on camera.
When you arrived, how many days did it take you to find the lion?
Yeah, it took forever to find him. Alberta's a big haystack, and that's a real small needle in that haystack. So I think we ended up finding him on like day 7 or 8, maybe.
Take me through that first encounter and what happened.
We were out, you know, glassing from the truck, driving around, and we found him in the tiniest patch of brush. He was bedded down, he was comfortable. We got down, we got all the way around there. We got up tight to him. He was kind of buried in the brush right there. We could see his antlers. We'd see him turning back and forth. And we were at one point 68 yards. And I just kept saying, you know, I want to get a shot. We got to 68 yards. The hard part is over. You know, let's hope we get a shot. We didn't get a shot. He stood up once, turned around, laid back down. He stood up again, and he moved straight away from us. And he popped out in the opening in that little patch of bush. It just didn't make sense, so I was forced to watch him walk away the first time.
So the wind gets taken out of your sails. What are you guys figuring to do to get back on him and to find him?
So now we're in a pickle because it took us 7 days to find him, and we had him, and now he's gone, and we have no idea where he went. As luck would have it, we found him, and we found him again that very same night. And the stalk was on. I mean, we knew where he was. He was in another small patch of bush. The first part of the stalk was easy. I mean, we cruised right up through there. We got all the way. We used the lay of the land to get up to the top. I popped up over the brush with my binos, and he's looking right at me. And he stood up and just kind of off he went. So I was forced to watch him walk away the second time.
Fast forward to the second trip. What's going through your head traveling up there, and are you trying to decide a game plan before you get there, kind of how you or what you want to do?
So before we head back up the second time, I'm sitting there thinking, you know, how are we going to do this? I had 10 days to try to hunt a deer the first time, and I wasn't able to get one down, let alone pinpointing the Majestic lion and trying to go after him. So we had put some cameras out before I left the first time. I'm excited to get up there. I'm excited to check the reconics to see if we, you know, pinpointed him.
Did you find him on the camera? What was the story with the reconics?
So the reconics is crazy because we get up there and that's the first thing we do. We're like, let's go check that camera. Let's go see. It's been marinating here since we left the last time. Nobody's been in here. We walk over to where the camera was on the fence post and the camera's gone. It's not on the fence post. And I mean, you have to remember we're in the middle of nowhere, prairie, you know, northern Alberta, and surely it didn't get stolen. So combing around through like the tall grass and kind of the CRP, and I'm trying to find where this camera is, and sure enough, there it is. It's laying in the tall grass, and the camera is laying so that the face of the reconics is pointing straight up in the sky. I have no idea how long it's been like that. So my thought process is, well, you know, hopefully this isn't completely useless. Hopefully it was at least up on the fence post, you know, for a while. So I'm going through the videos, and I get to this one video where there's the nose of a deer, and it's kind of right at the camera, and again, camera's pointing straight in the sky. You can see antler and beam, and the deer kind of, you can't tell what it is, you know, how big the deer is, but the deer kind of turns. And when the deer turns in the camera, you see this little inside kicker off the inside of his main beam. And immediately I go back to the picture in velvet, and I'm thinking, that's the lion. This right here is a video of the lion. He's got the hook on the inside of his beam. I go back to the picture, sure enough, I check it on my phone, and he has it. He's got that same little hook on the inside of his beam. So it was a confirmation that, yes, the lion is here, this is where he lives, and it was a recent video. Anytime you can have intel like that, it's huge.
So you feel like you have your intel, so your kill factors are starting to line up. Going into the first morning of the hunt, what's your game plan?
The game plan now is just we have to physically see him. We have to lay eyeballs on him, and you know, I keep thinking back to the first go around, a 10-day trip, and I saw him twice over the course of 10 days. So I'm prepared to go days without seeing him and, you know, just accept what the hunt gives. And sure enough, we find the lion right out of the gate.
Was he bedded? Was he feeding? Did he have any more deer with him? What was his scenario? Was he easy to get to?
So we're sitting on this little kind of farm road off in the distance, and the lion is directly across the field in a patch of bush. And there's this little CRP opening in the middle. From where he was laying, the wind, we were going to try and actually quarter wind him. The wind was blowing just like this. We were going to actually try to quarter wind him the whole way to see how close we could get and kind of come down behind him to see if we could, you know, get a shot at him. So when we hit that corner post, rather than be content and just sit there, which I would have done, the way the terrain on that edge of that bush line is it actually kind of dipped down in the field and then kind of came up to a little rise. So as I'm looking at it, we can use this little dip in the land because we'll be tucked behind that fence grass, and we'll just crawl up there as close as we can possibly get. Who cares if it takes an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours? We're at that point right now where if he stands up, it might be a long shot, but we've got a shot at making something happen.
How long did it take him to stand up?
In reality, it probably ended up being maybe 2 hours. And we discovered when we got over there was a smaller buck that was with him. We still couldn't see any does because of the tall grass, but we could see antlers on a smaller buck. So he's now out in front of us. He's comfortable, he's laying there, and we're just sitting there and we're watching him. And it's the occasional peek over the fence grass, lay an eyeball on him, duck back down. Peek over the grass, lay an eye on him, duck back down. And then all of a sudden, he decides to stand up. And when he stood up, it was one of those deals like, I can't believe this is happening. Here it goes. Like, all that work that we put in the first trip, all the work we just put in on this stock, and it's all coming to a head right now, and this is gonna happen. And at that moment, I started to get up and draw, and as I started to get up and draw, I realized when I got about halfway up that deer was standing head on facing us, looking the other direction, but his body was head on to us. And I immediately dropped back down and said, that's not gonna work. And the lion decides to lay back down. He just kind of did a little twirl and circled around and just wasn't comfortable and wanted to get comfortable again, and he laid back down. So we sat there and we kept sitting there and we kept peeking over the fence grass. And, you know, out of nowhere, the young buck that he was with decides he was going to stand up, and he's going to go over to these little saplings and these little trees that are there, and he's going to start making some rubs, and he's going to start beating up trees. So he goes over and he starts doing that, but the problem is he's walking away from us as he's doing it. And in my head, I'm thinking, the lion's going to stand up. He's only going to put up for this, you know, with this little buck, you know, displaying dominance for so long. Then he's going to stand up and he's going to go over there and he's going to run him out of here. And as luck would have it, he stands up. He gets sick of that little buck tearing up those trees. Sure enough, he stands up. But instead of going over and pushing the little buck away, he turns, and now he starts coming directly across in front of us, just like this. And I've got this big tree that's kind of in the middle, and the little buck is now coming over, and he's kind of on the lion's tail, and they're both making their way, just milling across in front. And I said to Lee, I said, pop a range and let me know. And he popped the range, and I think he said 48. I draw back as I stand up, and I remember the first thought in my head when I looked at it is, there is no way that's 48 yards. I mean, I remember that distinctly, but I thought he said 48. So I hold my pen on, I let the arrow fly, and I watch the arrow sail 6 inches over top of the lion's back. And I immediately dropped back down to my knees, and my mind went to mush. I mean, complete mush. So I kind of peek back up and I look over, and there's the lion, as content as can be, standing there feeding and just kind of milling around. At this point, I don't know what really happened. So the quarter wind that we had is all of a sudden no longer in our favor. The quarter wind is actually, he is going to be at the wind line in like 5 steps. So we pop up. Lee gives me a range again, 48. And I'm thinking in my head when he says 48, I'm like, it doesn't look 48. I sailed his back the first time, and I made the call to trust the rangefinder. And I said, just trust it. You know, it's got to be on. Sure enough, still hit him high. He turns, he starts to run, and he's running up through the field. He goes up, he crests over the hill, disappears into a patch of bush. So I'm assessing the situation, and basically I'm shooting a hypodermic. The angle was good. Chances are it came out the far lung. You know, he ran. Obviously that's going to happen. It only clipped one lung. He goes into a patch of bush. We know he's in there. We can see him if he comes out. So what's another 5 hours waiting? What's another 6 hours waiting? And that's what we did. We decided we were just going to sit and wait, and the wait began. Lee found him, and I'm telling you, when I walked up on that deer, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Between antler size, body size, just impressive. The look of that deer all around. Impressive is the only way to describe him.
How impressive was he? What did he total out to be?
We told him up that night, and he came out to 208. The Majestic line scores 208 gross.
How high does that rank on your hunting career and all the animals that you've been able to harvest?
Pretty much towards the top. I mean, my bucket list hunt was a spot and stock muley hunt for a long time. I never had the chance to do it because usually I'm in Alaska that time of year when the spot and stock muley stuff is really good. And I finally got to do it, and to be able to do it, and the first muley I take is in Alberta, spot and stock with a bow, just how I wanted it to be. And it ends up being a 208-inch muley that is completely unique. When you look at the lion, he's got double brow tines, which is rare for mule deer to have. Not only does he have double brows, they're like 5 and 6 inches. I mean, they're not just tiny little brows that are traditionally on mule deer. He's got a really tight frame, which is a little bit different. Usually with muleys, it's like, oh, he's 30 inches wide. He's not 30 inches wide. He's like 18 inches wide. But he's got tines for days. He's got mass for days. He's got drop tines. He's got kickers. He's got everything that from an antler standpoint you could ever look for in a mule deer. I don't know that I'll ever hunt another one because that one's going to be hard to top.